That brings us to item number 12, which is public participation. The board welcomes and encourages public participation at all meetings. We respectfully ask that you adhere to the procedures and decorum provided in Board Policy BEDH, public participation at meetings. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Dr. Harris, will keep time and notify you as your time is winding down. Questions asked during public participation that are placed in writing may receive a written response in a timely manner. So with that, we have several people signed up. The first person is Ms. Leisha Huffstetter. Ms. Huffstetter.
Good afternoon. I'm coming as a concerned taxpayer for District 5. With the $37 million that you have in the fund balance, why are you raising our taxes again? Cannot some of this needed money come out of that $37 million fund balance? I guess I should put that in writing so I can get a response, or I could FOIA that. And also, why are you, the school board, trying to shut down the voice of the taxpayers in District 5? Because we elect you to represent us. And some of you guys are up for re-election this year. You are elected to represent us, hear our concerns, and hear our voice. Sometimes we deserve an answer to our questions without filing a FOIA. The policy in place is proper and it is good. A change in policy makes it look to the community like the district is trying to hide information or make it more difficult for information to be accessed and received by the taxpayers who vote for you to represent them in this district. There are upcoming elections, and it is imperative that you who are being up for election this year and are going to be up for election in the next years, that you listen carefully to our concerns and listen carefully to our voices. It's important that you pay attention to what we have to say. We are the ones in control of the board per the elections. Think deeply and think circumspectly about how you vote tonight, because how you vote will be public and it will be remembered. Thank you for allowing me to make these comments.
We have 3 more people signed up, and I noticed they're all sitting in the back of the room, so if you all could move down, it would be in this order: Mr. Michael Whitehurst, Mr. Ken Lovelace, and then Ms. Kim Murphy. That would save us a little bit of time.
My next?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening. So first I want to just say, Dr. Hepner, congratulations on your pending retirement. Thank you for your service, and we wish you the very best, okay? And talking about conservation, when you guys think about building that Amex Ferry Road School, I need you to think about conservation when you do that. Sorry, that was my quiet voice coming out. I am talking tonight about the BEDH, public participation in meetings, in those proposed policy changes. So I have just a general overall concern about the change in general. I think the process to be able to submit questions, get answers, I think that's a good policy. We've talked about policy before. And as an example of that, I just wanted to read a section, one of the last sections that's supposed to be changed. It says, the purpose of this policy is to complement the Freedom of Information Act and allow members of the public to present the board with comments, thoughts, and ideas. It is not a question and answer period While any board member may request that the administration respond to a particular question, the board policy is to prefer that any queries made by members of the public are made utilizing the Freedom of Information Act when applicable. So there's a couple concerns I have. The first thing is language. I don't like subjective language when it comes to policy. So, you know, there's some, like in that paragraph that I read, there's may respond, et cetera. To me, that's subjective. And I think that should be looked at as far as, you know, if we're going to be able to submit questions and get answers, we ought to be able to, that should be all encompassing versus may. The other thing is, I don't even know, the Freedom of Information Act, this would be a long dialogue tonight, but as far as that is generally a policy that's around accessing documents, this type of thing. If you read that new policy that was enacted last year, so that's a little bit of a broad stretch as far as utilize that policy, but even the terminology saying when applicable almost supports what I'm asking here, because what you're saying is when applicable, we'll send you through FOIA. So I think there has to be some, you know, some cleaning up of that language. That's my perception. The other thing about the policy change is, from a FOIA standpoint, I'm concerned about having to encumber the public with more processing costs, because the FOIA process is a costly process, and there may be public out there that can't afford those costs to be able to go through that process. That's a consideration. The other part of that section that I read was about, this is not a Q&A. One thing, and I've sent y'all emails about this, I am very big on collaboration, and we need a forum at some point. You know, I sent y'all some information about Georgia and community collaboration, and I hope that we will look for ways to do more of that type of thing. And so that's all I had tonight. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst. Mr. Ken Lovelace?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Hefner, thank you for your service, Superintendent Hefner. And Mr. Gant, we're all, John D. and I are all praying for everything on behalf of you. I won't go into he stole a lot of my thunder, but basically there were two things about this. Was the word may in the proposed, and also I think there's some filtering, that you wanted this to be filtered through a school board member before somebody could get a written answer. Filtering is a very dangerous thing. That's I don't think we need to be into that. First, this is dangerous, especially at this point in our nation's history. The takeaway from Parkland, Florida, is that public trust in institutions, mainly local ones, is dissolving. Your new policy would further erode public sentiment in this district. Second, the cornerstone of any public education policy is leading by example. I'm an old Boy Scout leader, and leading by example is what you're supposed to do. That's the reason for this board's existence. Is basically is hiding behind policy rather than informed truth, the lesson that you wish your students to learn. You need to think about that. Third, parents interact with students, teachers, and the community at schools because schools are safe, wholesome places where they can be a part of children's successes and failures before the rude realities of adult life kick in. A school board policy which does nothing to enhance that just makes life more difficult. Think of the inventory of volunteer talent that this district might never realize because of the message it will send. This message would be received as follows. The board does not view my question as relevant because it will not take time to give a written answer. So why should I take time to ask it? For that matter, why should I volunteer? They don't want my involvement. Suspicions confirmed, another parent lost. With most of you having many years of experience on this board, there are vast deposits of experience upon which to draw. I cannot imagine that there are many answers that you don't already know. Finally, simply put, if you want fewer questions, be more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelace. Our final speaker is Ms. Murphy.
Good evening. In February, I asked a few questions as I'm trying to get a better understanding of how the district does business with our tax dollars. It was a simple yes or no question, but I didn't receive a direct response, so I'd like to ask it again. Can the proceeds from the $11 million bond that was just approved be spent on projects other than the projects listed on the $10 million capital projects budget, which was also just approved, such as the design team that was solicited for a new elementary school on Amex Ferry Road, or to fund building the new school that the board has not yet approved? I have a question in regard to another response. My question was how you were planning on funding building the new school. Are you budgeting 8%, excuse me, are you budgeting overages collected from taxpayers, which you call the fund balance? Are you budgeting 8% money, again, like with Valentine Elementary and Oak Point Elementary, to build the new school on Amex Ferry Road, or will you hold a bond referendum? Your response was the district could use funds from 8% money for the construction, or it could conduct a referendum. You also said that the overages collected from taxpayers is an operating fund and is not to be used on capital projects. I'm puzzled. According to the 2017 audit, page 69, you have budgeted $6.8 million of fund balance money for future capital projects. This seems to contradict your answer that you don't use the excess money collected for capital projects. Can you please explain the discrepancy or correct the answer if need be? That leads me to another question. On the night the Amex Ferry Road School was approved, Ms. Baumgartner said that $1 million had been previously set aside out of fund balance to buy land, again, a capital project. Fund balance has now grown to over $38 million. The school board has not yet publicly voted to approve setting $6.8 million of fund balance aside or the money to buy the land. My question is, why does the board approve budgeting money for some projects, but with other money, there are no public votes, and even some board members seem to be unaware the money was being set aside? I appreciate the opportunity to ask these questions. District 5 has a policy for citizens requesting documents, policy BDGA. The district must respond within 10 business days, and responses are posted online. The district also has a policy for citizens desiring answers to questions they ask, policy BEDH, which you are voting to change tonight. I'm very much opposed to those proposed deletions. The policies are similar. Since March of last year, there were a total of 19 questions, yet approximately 90 document requests. If there are issues with the questions policy, can you simply address those issues? But don't delete the opportunity for citizens to receive answers to questions that don't involve a document. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our public participation, and we'll now move to item number 13,